Hawaii that there were certain places that I used to go fairly regularly, and one of them was, this is going to sound strange, but when I would cycle in from the place where I lived, which was about 12 miles out of the school that I attended at the time, I would come in, and a lot of times it'd be raining or whatever, and I'd change clothes in a bathroom at one of the local sort of strip mall type of place. It wasn't exactly a strip mall, but it was that kind of place. And they had this bathroom that you could use, that anybody in the place could use. And I would go in and use that bathroom in order to change because it was a good place to do that. And I still remember thinking at 17 or 18 years of age, why the heck did somebody put their stupid scrawl on the wall of this bathroom? I still remember thinking that. I'm the same way when it comes to the area around me. I'm not saying that I'm supremely neat or clean. I think that there's a place for a little bit of mess, and that's okay. And in fact, the inside of my house is a bit of a mess, and I'm working on that daily to try and get it cleaner. But the point is, I'm not some supreme neat freak or anything like that. But I still, to this day, do not understand that sort of thing. I want to talk about this idea of making your environment on the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I'm your host. I'm Kurt, and today is Wednesday, it is Thursday the 17th, of March of 2022. I have the wrong thing in my notes at the moment. Going to have to live with that. Welcome to everyone who's here on Rumble, on the podcast, on YouTube, on BitChute, on CloudHub, on my Facebook page. That's the Kurt's Religion and Politics page there. On Kurt's Religion and Politics.locals.com, on Minds.com, MINDS.com, on the Kurt's Religion and Politics group primarily there, on Parler, on Gab, on Twitter, or wherever else you might happen to be picking me up today. And I want to talk again on the subject of making your environment. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and go through my notes really quick to, again, set the stage. I've lived in the same house for more than 10, but less than 20 years. Closer to 20 than to 10, I'll say that. I'm not one who worries about his lawn being immaculate or the outside of his house being perfect. I have a life to live like pretty much everybody else. If that weren't hard enough, just looking after myself, I have a child at home still under the age of 10. Getting close to it, but he's not there yet. So when I tell you I don't tend to allow garbage to pile up in front of my house or on the part of my street upon which I live, you should know I'm making an effort where sometimes it's hard to find the time to do so. What you need to understand about that is this. If you tag the street or traffic signs in your neighborhood, or drop your trash on the ground as you walk down the street, unless you don't plan on going down that road later, it's you that will have to look at what's been done. It's just not that complicated. It's not that complicated. If you want that clean, nice place to live you see on television or wherever, you must commit to keeping it up. Again, I'm not talking here about some Herculean effort as a rule. Most of the time, that's not what's called for. Start small, then continue to clean things up until they're the way you'd like them to be. I get not being rich. I'm nowhere near there myself. But there's as much to be said for taking care of stuff people drop on the ground and cutting your grass now and then as just about anything else you can name. It's great you have that neighbor who has a manicured garden. It's lovely you have someone close by who has the little lights down his or her footpath. I'm not trying to tell you not to do things like that as well if you want. Frankly, they tend to be pretty cheap and not take a lot of maintenance. That said, just taking the time to pick up that piece of garbage in the street or mow your yard is a definite start. As you get time and expend other such resources, maybe you can work to even nicer things. In all of this, though, you need to realize you can do simple things that make it so that things around you don't get nasty and ugly. This applies every bit as much in a city as it does in a suburb or wherever, in rural areas or wherever. You can always do simple things to make your quality of life better. See, that candy wrapper on the side of the road is something you need to pick up. Pick it up. Have dirt or leaves on your porch? Take a moment to sweep it off. Little things like that make all the difference in the world. Stop complaining about how bad things are and start doing something about it. Do you like to live in a trash-covered neighborhood? I sure don't. How do you combat that? Stop littering, and by the way, pick that stuff up. It's almost never. You think, okay, so I'm done with my notes. You might have figured that out. You may not. By the way, if you hear my son in the background, you may very well, and you need to know that that's just the way that is today. I almost never have enough litter deposited around my house to more than probably a tenth of the way fill up a garbage bag. In other words, it's not that people are trying to get me to throw away their garbage. Yes, it's annoying that they're doing it. I acknowledge that. And I am here to tell you, when I go out and look on my street or in my yard and I see garbage there, 95% of the time it could not have even come from me or my house. Why? Because it's product that never makes its way into my house to begin with. I don't drink Coke. In fact, we don't drink soda at all in my house. I drink water, I drink coffee, that's it. I don't smoke anything, so if there's cigar wrappers on the floor of the ground outside or whatever, that's somebody else, because it surely didn't come from me, and nobody in my house does likewise. If there are beer bottles or cans or whatever on my property or on the street, didn't come from me. Most of the time I don't drink anything, and if I do, it's very rarely, and oh, by the way, I don't leave the remains out on the street or in the yard. I just don't. So you have to know that I'm not sitting here telling you something that I'm not having to do myself. There are people in my neighborhood that for whatever reason think it's a grand idea to throw litter on the street or whatever. There are people who tag the road signs and so forth. I'm just telling you, you are going to look at it later if you're the person who's doing that. It doesn't make any sense. You're the one who's going to look at that. You're the one who's going to deal with it. Why do you do this to yourself? Do you like living in a rundown, nasty neighborhood? When a person like me has to take the time to pick up your trash, I don't have as much time to do other things that I'd like to do to make things better, not just for me, but for you, so that you can walk through my neighborhood and actually not feel like you're walking through a trash heap. Okay? This is what I'm trying to tell you. All of this stuff that I'm talking about, it is to my advantage for you to not litter in my neighborhood. It is to my advantage for you not to mess up the street signs so they end up buying more and charging the people who pay taxes for what they buy. It is to my advantage, but it's to yours as well. It's to your advantage as well. I'm sorry if that's not something that you get, if that's not something you understand, that's not really on me. You need to understand that the way nice areas exist is that the people who live in those areas either make them nice or pay for them to be so. That's how that works. Yeah, okay, the nice streets are the government, typically. But streets that aren't covered in litter, street signs that aren't covered in graffiti, that is not the government. That is people messing up the area where they live. And I'm sorry, but if you don't pee in your bed, I'm not suggesting that you leave stuff all over the street either. It's bad enough that we've got garbage in landfills and so forth that's not being taken care of very well. For goodness sakes, at least don't leave it on the street as well. At least have the sense not to do that. Okay, need to wrap this up. This has been the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I'm your host, I'm Kurt, and today is Wednesday, the 16th of March of 2022. It's Thursday the 17th. Remember, I talked about my notes being wrong. Well, I haven't fixed them. So Thursday the 17th of March of 2022, that means tomorrow will be Friday the 18th of March of 2022, will be the beginning of the Sabbath at sundown tomorrow for those who celebrate that Sabbath. Hope you have a good Sabbath if you do so. But yes, tomorrow will be Friday the 18th, and today is Thursday the 17th. Thank you for everyone who's been here on Rumble, on the podcast, on YouTube, on BitChute, on CloudHub, on my Facebook page. That's the Kurt's Religion and Politics page on Facebook, on kurtzreligionandpolitics.locals.com, on minds.com, on the Kurt's Religion and Politics group there, on Parler, Gab, Twitter, or wherever else you happen to be catching me today. I should talk about the other part that relates to the social media and so forth. You can give me a like, a dislike, a thumbs up, thumbs down, whatever it happens to be, a plus, minus. You can give me a Rumble on Rumble, which is the boxing glove, particularly if you're on the Apple apps on either Apple or Google products, Android products. You can give me the boxing glove there. But, of course, you can also comment. You can give me, by the way, whatever kind of feedback you can. And I think, again, that it's CloudHub that's the one that gives you multiple possibilities. Give me whatever feedback you feel like, and I'll do my best to pay attention to it. Again, you can comment on whatever I put out there, and I will do my best to pay attention to that comment on my content. If I feel it's a reasonable thing, I will respond. If I'm able to do so, reply whatever you want to say to whatever comment you put out there. If not, I will try to pay attention to it anyway. I will try to let you know somehow whether it's voting it up or voting it down or whatever. Typically, it'll be up if I see your comment. If you put something like advertisement or things that I think will hurt other people, I will definitely make sure those go away if the platform that I'm using that you put it on does not do so before I manage to get to it. So keep that in mind. But in any case, I appreciate any feedback. It's always helpful and useful so long as you're doing something that's constructive, even if it's telling me you really wasted your time talking about this, in my opinion, or whatever, or you're dumb when it comes to this thing in here, and schooling me on what's going on. Okay, running over time big today. That seems to be a theme recently. I may have to kind of widen my videos out to 15 minutes the way things are going. But the subject that I have been talking on today has been making your environment. And tomorrow we're going to talk about cheap electric cars. And that's a question. Cheap electric cars? This is something that I've been doing recently, is sort of questioning things that people are trying to say and put out there. I'm just here to tell you, and we'll get into the details on this tomorrow. But I don't think you're going to find those electric cars are going to be all that cheap. In fact, I think you're going to find that it's going to be a horrible thing right now, particularly considering the prices of the cars themselves. But I want to get into some other things that factor into that as well. And I think I've talked about this before, but I think it's good to sort of cover and talk about this a little bit more as time goes on, just so that people get some ideas how that's all going. Hope you're doing well today. Hope things are going well for you, and hopefully we will see you again on Friday's edition, Fridays not Thursdays, Friday's edition of the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. The speaker on this edition of the Daily Summation is Kurt Schubert. This podcast was created on Thursday, the 17th of March of 2022. The Daily Summation is created for Kurt's Religion and Politics. Thanks for watching this edition of the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I hope you found it entertaining or instructional, or maybe both. If you want to see more from me, you can go to blogs.kpschubert.com. That's blogs.kpschubert.com. I am on Twitter, Parler, and Minds.com. My handle on each of those is @kpschubert. That's @kpschubert. I have a Rumble and a YouTube channel. They are the Kurt's Religion and Politics channels on Rumble and YouTube. I have a Facebook page. The Facebook page is Kurt's Religion and Politics as well. I am on Patreon. If you want to support me, that's one of the better places you can do that, and you will find me at Kurt's Religion and Politics on Patreon. I have a podcast. The podcast is podcasts with an S .kpschubert.com. That's podcasts.kpschubert.com. I think you should be able to find me with relative ease on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify as well. The best way I find to do that is to look for Kurt's Religion and Politics. You can try to use the Daily Summation. I find that it doesn't work as well as a general rule, but you can always try that. I'm glad to have you aboard today, and hopefully we will see you again tomorrow.